The United Nations in South Africa, along with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, have developed a quotes booklet. And this, of course, matches Madiba's famous sayings aligned to each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, in November 2009, the United Nations General Assembly declared the 18th of July Nelson Mandela International Day in order to recognize and also to salute the former South African president's contribution not only to his pursuit of peace but also freedom worldwide. And this remains the only day in the UN's calendar to commemorate a global icon. So joining me in studio right now is the United Nations resident coordinator in South Africa, Mr. Nelson Muffuh. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've been here about 6 months now, so I suppose welcome to the country.
Yes, and I'm really enjoying being in the country. An honor to be here, named Nelson, and also commemorating Nelson Mandela Day with you today.
Which is absolutely fabulous. But of course, you know, just your first impressions of South Africa in the time that you have been here, and this country, not only associated, but of course, the home of one of the greatest statesmen ever.
A country with huge potential, amazing people, diverse landscapes, a huge amount of challenges as well. And so the UN being here, and myself personally, we're very keen to accompany South Africa, the government and the people, in trying to overcome some of the challenges and live up to the full potential. But it is impressive. Over the last 6 months, I've traveled extensively, met quite a few people, and I think there's hope.
And that's important to hold on to, because we cannot afford to become hopeless. But looking at today, a day, of course, which the United Nations have basically embraced to commemorate and also celebrate the man that was Nelson Mandela. We look at everything that he encompassed as a human being, but also that a guiding light for not just South Africa, but for the world. And looking at what we are celebrating today, we just saw from our reporter Nozintombi Mia in terms of what they are doing in Alexandra today. And it speaks to greater potential and aspirations the world over, speaking to those sustainable development goals. Now, for many people, when we talk about the sustainable development goals, it's very abstract. You know, people find it quite difficult to align that to their everyday lives. So would you agree with that? And maybe also speak to us about how Nelson Mandela was able to basically capture and speak to these very important sustainable development goals.
It may seem as if it's a far-fetched notion. 17 goals adopted by world leaders in 2015 at the UN. But emerging from a truly inclusive and extensive consultative process, which is relatable to the interest of people themselves. Now, if you look at what the goals entail, I mean, we refer to it as a to-do list for the world. It spans from ending poverty, tackling inequalities, providing clean water and sanitation, ensuring girls go to school, ensuring that we're consuming sustainably and producing sustainably, taking care of our planet, life above water, life underwater, so plastic pollution, dealing with climate change, protecting rights, ensuring free and fair elections, service delivery that is really functioning. So these are all relatable issues to the lives of people. And Madiba himself, through his life, I say he's the #1 servant leader we can think about, and a humane person who helped bring about a lot of change. And actually his call to action through his powerful speeches is what you can see encapsulated also in these goals. He talked about just making sure we are at harmony with each other, with the planet, and this is what these goals are all about. So really today, on Nelson Mandela Day, where we're focusing really on saying it is in your hands to bring about change. It is in your hands to create a better world for all. There's no better set of goals than the 17 SDGs to bring this really to the fore. It is our responsibility not only to remember Madiba, but actually to live like Madiba, to be Madiba, to be inspired by his life and translate that into doing things that help one another and protect our planet.
I go back to the point of it seeming abstract, because the question then becomes, you say it is in our hands, but whose responsibility is it to drive this? And the obvious answer is all of us.
Yes.
But very often when we have things like these set out, we look to government, we look to the elected leaders around the world to drive all of these programs. Now, you had the Millennium Development Goals, now you've got the Sustainable Development Goals, and for many it feels like, tick box exercises, we're kicking the can down the road. If we don't achieve some of these now, we'll come up with a new set of development goals and we'll call it something else somewhere down the line. How do you then encourage and also persuade people to basically take the seriously one and to also make it personal to each and every one of us?
I mean, I think that's why the paradigm shift from the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, to the Sustainable Development Goals, which you refer to, is really one about ensuring it is a whole of society approach. It is not only governments, it's not only the United Nations, it is businesses, it is people and individuals themselves who have a role to play. We cannot lead sustainable lives if it doesn't start with us, if we don't also invest in the right way, if we don't consume the right things, if we don't ensure we live in harmony with one another and the planet. So that's why it's really important that in looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, deliberately, there was this idea of infusing sustainability at the core of it. It's no longer a band-aid approach. It is no longer just ensuring that we reduce only poverty, but we don't look at how we grow our economy, how we include people meaningfully, how we take care of the planet as well, and how we, there's the notion of sustainable production and consumption as well, integrated in that. And just to say this year is a mid-year point to the 2030 deadline for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're reviewing progress, but we're also calling on everyone, starting from governments, but also businesses, local communities, and individuals to step up effort, a surge in commitments and urgency to achieve the SDGs. And there's a summit in September in New York that is really going to look at that. But before then, starting from today, we're also calling on South Africa and the South African people and government to look at how to step up action on the SDGs. And this is something that we, as the United Nations, look towards working with the government in this regard.
And I indeed look forward to having further discussions about that at a later stage. But for today, it's all about Madiba. It's about giving back. You've brought this beautiful banner. You have a little book of quotes there next to you. So let's speak to that. What's the banner about, first and foremost?
The banner is actually the front page of the booklet which you referred to, looking at Madiba's inspiring quotes and call to action and making them relatable, the point we were talking about earlier, and really pulling from his quotes and his life, things that really directly align with the 17 SDGs. So if you look at the booklet, and I'll leave a copy with you when we're done, and we also, of course, will make sure we don't print too many, since we're also talking about conserving the planet. So there's a QR code for readers to be able to scan and also download the book. If you look at that, we have in there quotes on Madiba. I could read one of them, for example, the one on poverty, which is SDG 1. It says, like slavery and appetite, poverty is not natural. It is man-made and it can be overcome. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it's an act of justice. And this is related to SDG 1, which is on no poverty. And alongside that, we have a list of actions that individuals can also take to contribute to ending poverty. And this goes through from goal 1 to goal 17 with the appropriate Madiba quote aligned to the SDGs and a call to action where individuals themselves, the point of being our responsibility to act, to step forward, look at what they can do amongst their communities, with their families, as clients, as consumers, and just as global citizens. So that is what this book is about. And working with the Mandela Foundation, we were able to source some very, I think, quite captivating Madiba photos and quotes, and then align that with the work the UN is also doing. But the work begins from now. We have a book. It's about taking it out there. It's about people feeling inspired to want to be Madiba, to want to really embrace the fact that and the notion it is in their hands to bring the change that we need to see in the world.
And I really look forward to, reading through that. And as you say,
I could give you your copy now.
Thank you so much. And also, as you say, just taking a closer look at exactly what those development goals are and the step-by-step guide to actually achieving them. For example, you read the first one and how to play your part. I like that. Donate what you don't use. Local charities will give your gently used clothes, book, furniture, etc., to someone else for a new life. Find a charity you want to support. So I love that, the fact that it is actually easily actionable in trying to assist people and make them understand how to move this forward. But thank you so much, Mr. Nelson Muffuh, for stopping by.
No, thank you for having me, and I look forward to future interactions as well.
Absolutely. And that was Nelson Muffuh. He's the United Nations Resident Coordinator in South Africa, speaking to us about the United Nations in South Africa, together with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, having developed this Quotes Booklet. And of course, as you saw on the banner, there is, of course, a scannable barcode there that you can actually use, and you can download that in obviously to be more sustainable. But I have a copy. Hopefully you'll get yours.